The Multipod podcast brings multipotentialites together to discover common interests, projects, and offers in a spirit of community and collaboration. Join me, Ted Craig, as I feature guests from around the world here to share their stories and find meaningful connections. Your call to action? Reach out to them after this episode and say hello. Multipotentialites live unconventional lives by instinct and by design. The Multipod is here to empower you in living life on your terms. Welcome back to the Multipod. It's a pleasure to have you with us, listening and now watching the Multipod as we embark on our new video experience. Today's guest, Ross, he's a good friend of mine who lives in Vancouver in Canada, so a fellow Canadian. Ross and I have known each other for just coming up on 3 years. And right from day one, I recognized him as someone very grounded, a very deep thinker. He's kind of an old soul. He's the type of person that loves to give you the time of day. He's wonderful making those connections. He's got all kinds of contacts and friends, as he'll talk in this episode. Much of that is thanks to his wonderful dog, Charlie Brown. But Ross is a type who's very gregarious and loves to have those conversations. So when I was thinking, well, who could I ask first to be the first guest of this relaunch here of the Multipod? Ross was the first one that came to mind, and I was really, really glad that he said yes. He has been on the Multipod before. We did a quick thing back not long after we met. It would have been late summer of 2022, and we were talking about some entrepreneurial stuff related to the Puttyverse, but we hadn't done until now an episode really talking more about him and his story and the things he's interested in, but particularly his journey of the past year, which has really been full of some pretty deep and profound changes, which he'll talk about. Some of it certainly is related to his health and just perspective on life and his sense of self, kind of, where he's at in his life at this point in time and how that's evolved over the last few years, but really over this past year in particular. So it's a very, very inspiring story. There's some practical tips for sure as well. We kind of revolve more than anything around journaling. And as he points out, that's been the thing that's really helped him stay focused and stay guided and kind of discover a new side to himself. So Ross is an absolute convert and prophet of journaling and the power of doing so. He has his own system. It's called North Star Journaling, is how he calls it. It has 4 different components that help to keep you focused and give you a bit of direction of what to do. But it's, as he talks about, it's not so much like do this, do that, follow every step. It's more of a guide. So you can kind of take it for inspiration. You'll see how it works for him. But in giving him that focus again, it's quite an experience in itself, journaling and to hear him talk about it. So it's one of those practical, again, tangible takeaways from our conversation. So when you're thinking of reaching out to Ross, which is the objective of this podcast now, is to encourage the listeners to reach out, write to, contact our guests, especially when something piques your interest. And when Ross talks about journaling, that might just pique your interest quite strongly. So really do reach out to him if you are interested in that. But yeah, we talk about some pretty deep philosophical questions and the journey that he's been on over the past year or so. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. As I say, it's wonderful to be back, and I'm sure you'll be very inspired by Ross, and it really gives you a taste of some more of the great conversations that are coming up. Now, one final note before we start the conversation. I pondered a lot what to do about this. When I recorded the interview with Ross's audio sounds great. He had the right microphone and all that. And I thought that I had my microphone selected as well. But as it turns out, there was a bit of a glitch in the program we were using, and it was selecting a different microphone, which was hanging about 2 feet down from where I am. So you'll see me talking into this nice fancy microphone. But what you're actually hearing is one that's way down there and sounds much more distant and tinny and not that great. So I very much thought, well, is it worth keeping the audio as is and trying to fix it, or do we have to record the whole conversation again? And it was such a great conversation. Like, I didn't want to lose that energy and try to find it again and so on. And Ross was amenable. He said, if we need to do it again, we can. But fortunately, I called my good friend Jeff Long, who's great at doing audio repair, and he did some work on my file, to make it sound a bit better, but it's not up to my usual standards. So the question was, do I publish it as is or do we do it again? And I thought, well, maybe this is a moment where I demonstrate that, yes, even people with a few years of experience can overlook things and make mistakes and not realize it, etc. And sometimes that's okay. It's okay to just go ahead and publish. And I mean, it's listenable. It's not that bad, but it's just not up to my usual standards. So that's why it will sound a little bit different. But I'm always trying to encourage people to podcast, take the first step, press record, go out there and do it. And if this helps to demonstrate that you don't have to be perfect, you can improve. And obviously that won't happen again, but you don't have to be perfect on day one. So if my example here helps you take that first step, then I'm glad that that happened. Let's put it that way. All right, let's pick up the conversation now between myself and Ross, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Multipod. This is the podcast for multipotentialites, where listeners can reach out to our guests and make wonderful connections. My name is Ted Craig. It's a pleasure to have everyone with us today, listening and watching. This is the first episode of our relaunch of the Multipod. We've been around since 2018, and now we're getting into a brand new era for this podcast. And to kick it off, I'm joined by my good friend Ross, who's coming to us from Vancouver. Ross, how are you doing today?
Oh, Ted, that's actually one of the most difficult questions in the world for me to answer. And I'm a philosopher, so it's funny because I can tell you the meaning of life, like the reason what time exists, all these different kind of crazy, complex philosophical questions. But the hardest question for me to answer is, how am I doing? Because to be honest, in some ways I'm great. In some ways not so good. I'm about to take my dog to the vet because he's going to have to get looked after. But at the same time, I'm launching my own content and I'm able to help you and support this new launch. And I'm honored to be on here. Like, it's oddly such a difficult question. And I don't think I'm the only multipod who's like that. I think like most of us who are quirky, I prefer to use the term quirky, are like that in a way where it's like, well, how are you doing? Well, it's like in reference to what? Like in what context? But overall, I am as I always am. I'm persistently good, I like to say. So I'm persistently good. How about you, my friend? How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good too. This is a big moment, I should say. I've been thinking about doing this relaunch here for many, many months. And as we'll probably talk a bit today, and I'm sure this will come out in other episodes as we go forward here, that, it was a long process to get to this point, to actually make the commitment and start to do the thing, because we're multipotentialites. And it's kind of like either there's so much we want to do and we just launch into all these different projects at once, which happens to me sometimes. Usually in my case, I wonder about your take on things, but like in my case, I'm afraid of commitment in a sense. I'm afraid of like getting into something that's going to be so big that I kind of lose control, or it's too much work. It's more work than I want to do, and I was worried about that with this podcast because I want to do it, but how much is it going to take over my time and my life, and like what kind of commitment do I want to make? So I had to get to that point. It took many months, but to get to that point where, okay, I know I'm ready now. I really want to do this. I've talked to lots of people about it, and the timing is right. So, it's a process. We can't just necessarily flip a switch and do things overnight, in an instant. It kind of takes some building up to it. So what's your experience with that?
Dude, I totally know what you're saying. Like, I so understand that. Like, I feel this is why you're one of my people. Like, and first off, too, like straight up, it's a privilege to be your first guest. I was touched when you asked me. Single tier, maybe, a little bit of that, but no. I'm glad to be on here, and I did some prepping and some notes because of exactly what you talked about. There's so many things. What do you talk about? Where do you start? I realized that I didn't want to just do one thing. I want to do everything, and I want to tie it all together. So for me, it's like in my brain is quirky, like I said, so I think of things differently. So to me, my brain sees it as like the skip ropes when kids do it, except imagine they had like six ropes that they're all turning, and I'm trying to find the timing to jump in there and everything. And more recently, I've just started to find that rhythm to where I'm now ready to jump in. And then instead of all the six ropes starting at once, they'll just add them as I go, because I now have kind of a story that I've done some more. I'll talk some more. I took some notes to prepare here so that I I don't go off in every which direction and try and stay on track. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot that I want to talk about and a lot that I wanted to mention in here for exactly the thing that you're talking about. And I
Yeah.
find that it's all about finding the rhythm. If you can find
Mm,
the rhythm and you can work the rhythm into things, and then you add something else to it, then you're creating a new sound wave, for, if you will, that completes the spectrum in that frequency, and then you can add a new instrument in and create a symphony. No one goes to a symphony being like, "Oh, there's too many instruments playing here." That's not the case. So I feel the similar vibe about my multifaceted ways.
there you
The
go.
malleable misfit that I am, feel that way about that because I can do these things at once.
Yeah.
And you can't just blather it out. It takes some precision, and that's sort of kind of a challenge that is there too. But I'm excited about it because I've gotten prepared for it, and I'm gonna make sure I stick to my notes there.
Well, let's learn more about Ross. So again, this is the point of this show, is really giving people a chance to tell their story, introduce themselves, reintroduce themselves, and kind of put it all in one place. And with that focus of things that are their priorities in general, and particularly maybe in the moment, and who they're looking to connect with, and how people can, of course, reach out and connect with them, with the guests. So that's what we're here to learn about. Tell us a bit about your background. You have a very interesting background, Ross. So tell us a bit about your story.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to make up some, you know, a cockamamie story about like some mythical being, some place or some sort of thing like that, touched from God in some special way. But no, I'm an indigenous man of Métis descent from a small community that still doesn't have drinking water this day. I was born and raised there, outside off of the Red River area of Manitoba, where my ancestors lived for centuries. And I'm a history nerd, so I traced my family lineage on both sides of my parents all the way back to the very first families to call themselves Métis and beyond. Um,
And we should clarify,
so
for I suppose our non-Canadian listeners in particular, what is Métis?
Oh, yeah. Well, Métis is one of the three different types of identified indigenous people in Canada, America, North America, Turtle Island. Number of different terms it's been called, but yeah, there's the First Nations tribal people as known as, commonly known as, and then there's the Inuit and Métis who've been identified as separate, distinct indigenous groups, and that's what I am. So Métis is a mix of colonizers that came and indigenous people that got married and they connected and they made families and they created their own culture that was neither both. It became its own thing. So we had our own language and our own culture, our own customs, and we had that for centuries. And that is who I am, and that's what I'm descended from. Yeah. And but like there's so much that I can go on to about that. Like I traced my lineage back for 13 generations on both sides. Like I know everyone's name all the way from the very beginning all the way up to like present day myself. It's a really interesting story, and I'll have to flip on this. I'll have to flip the script on that later.
Did you say script or script?
Uh, Good ear. Actually, I did say script. I did say script because that's sort of the whole point. And I'm going to go on a tangent, but no. So I said script because it's the Métis script is what started it all. The script was the document that led to or the document that justified robbing us of our sovereignty. It was the beginning of the cultural erasure that followed, and that's why I say flip the script instead of T, because I fancy myself to be a pretty clever fella. I'd love to tell more details on that. There's loads more that I can tell, but I'm just going to I promised that I'd stay on topic. So I'll pick up on this later. There will definitely be a lot more of that people can find on my Substack and my content later.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, we'll get into that for sure. And well, I guess the last question, at least about your overall background, before we get into some of your projects here. But I was always curious, actually, what brought you to Vancouver?
Well, that's part of the flip the script thing, actually. I ran away when I was 15 years old. Because it's not easy being born and raised in a kind of place that doesn't have running water, that's dealt with, you know, intergenerational trauma for more than a century. It's not easy. And I recognized when I was young that if I was to have the kind of future that I had dreamed of for myself, that I was going to need to find another path. And that's what led me here.
That's it.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. But I ran away at just being independent. I come from nomadic people, so moving around isn't a big thing for us. So I packed up and left. I had an opportunity here. I had some family that I could come and stay with here, and the foster system kind of took me in. So yeah, I had some family that I could stay with here, so I did.
And you've been in Vancouver basically ever since?
Pretty much ever since, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we were talking about this the other day with you. I lived in Vancouver back in 2009, 10, so it's too bad we didn't cross paths then. But one of these days, hopefully soon, I'll get out there and we'll finally meet up in person.
Either way, we can't avoid each other forever. You're stuck with me now that we're friends. You're stuck with me.
So tell me a bit about some of the changes and evolutions maybe of yourself and your life for the past year. And I know a big focus and emphasis is on journaling and the impact that's had on your life.
Well, yeah. I came to talk about a couple of things, and when you said you wanted me to do this and I was going to be the first guest, I thought, oh no, I better come up with something good. What do I want to talk about? And I thought, well, because there's so many different things. I realized that probably one of the best places to start with is journaling. So why not start where it all started? The first thing that really kind of made the difference for me was journaling, and I got to say, it might be the greatest thing that I've ever done or will do in life. And
really?
I didn't, yeah.
That's a pretty bold statement.
It is a bold statement. I didn't know it was going to be this profound. Like I couldn't have.
Okay.
I made it because I needed to process, to think, and to reconcile things, and to do what I was saying about streamlining, finding my rhythm in things. And it's something personal. I needed something free and something unrestrained that I could do without parameters to work things through, something that wasn't going to judge, give me feedback that isn't helpful. And I couldn't find a system that allowed me to do it. So I started journaling nearly 5 years ago. And I've been quite enjoying it, and it's been super helpful.
Did you follow a process or, kind of a guide maybe from someone else, somewhere else, how to do this? Or did you just kind of follow your instinct?
So when I first got the journal, I wrote in it, and I started to just do a stream of consciousness, just what was on my mind. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how it was, but I just knew that there was something in there. And you know how we always try different things and techniques that we hear work and are effective. And it was the time for me to get around to journaling after different diet type programs and things. I just decided to start journaling. And I kind of knew right away that I liked it, but I knew that it was missing something. And what I wanted to do was look for different ways of journaling. So I looked at bullet journaling, all kinds of different sort of techniques, had a journal jar, have a jar with prompts that I haven't touched for 2 years or so, because I don't need to prompt myself to talk, that's for sure. The opposite, maybe. And I realized that some things were missing, a past component and a future component. And so
like, how did you start? Do you remember,
I did it.
Was there a first story or the first thing that you wrote down that got you started and get the momentum down?
Oh man. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go there. So I love how life does this. I love how life can be humbling sometimes, and this is truly it. So my first entry was a humbling story, actually. So the first story, believe it or not, hilariously, when I look back on the first entry, it was December 6th, 2021. And I wanted to see for myself before coming on here to talk about it, like, what did I write, right? So I was thinking that it would be some profound prophetic revelation, and damn was it ever, okay? Like, it was extremely humbling, to say the least, in the absolute most unexpected way. And You'll never guess what it is, so I'll just tell you. The first, I can't believe. Okay, the first entry was I wrote about taking my dog for a walk for a poop, and I kid you not, the first entry was taking him out for a poop. I wrote in there like I just got back from taking Charlie for a functional, and that's my code for a functional. It was December 6th, so it was a cold, gross day, and the functional meant just walking under the bridge. So he does his business and comes back. So my first journal entry was about dog poop. Like, I can't believe it. Like, this is what I'm
Well, you
saying,
gotta start
that
somewhere.
you got to start somewhere. And like, this is the thing this is one of my favorite things about life, is how humbling it is, and how you can't really kind of see these sort of things coming out. But yeah, no, specifically for the purpose of that, it wasn't a walk in the sun, out in the park, sniffing flowers, nothing. A
Right.
functional is what I called it. And then I got in and I rambled on about some inconsequential BS about the
Yeah.
time. And, just kind of did the stream of consciousness thing that, like, I get that term from my friend Roy. So shout out to Roy for that. I was expecting some profound comment about changing the course of my life, and it was about dog poop. So I love it.
Wow.
It's so poetic in a weird kind of way.
Well, so where'd you go from there? And especially if you've been kind of reviewing it, and looking at your entries, can you see some kind of progression, and not just in thoughts, I guess, but in habits and how it started to become part of your life in a deep way too.
Well, yeah, like I said, it's the most profound thing that I'll ever do. No matter out of all the things that I do, it's the most profound thing that I'll ever do, because of the system that I created, which I call North Star journaling. And I do it to calibrate myself. So this was the point of it, was to calibrate myself and to, find my alignment with where I'm at in life, where I want to go, how I'm going to get there, what's going on with my mind and myself, the confusion, everything that's around. And that's why I came up with the system. And the very beginnings of that was, just kind of checking in on myself, like, how am I feeling and stuff. But yeah, that was the beginning of the biggest thing that I'll probably ever do.
Yeah, what is it that makes it so significant for you?
What I mean isn't the most successful thing that I'll ever do.
Mm.
What I mean is, everything is based off of this. Like, everything that I aspire to do as a philosopher, everything in my actual professional career aspirations, my cultural contributions with Flip the Script, my social network that I want to start, and, my own personal life and everything. Like, it's all has substantial potential and may likely overshadow in other areas, but, to specify, it's not the reach and the widespread catching that North Star is. What makes it the most significant is the impact that it had on me. If nobody else gets into it, I will be its greatest success, myself. The
Mm-hmm.
impact it had on me is what made me able to do these other things. So journaling gave me the agency to work through all the challenges. So the answer to your question, how
Mm.
can I be so sure, is because
Yeah.
I can't deny the change this has had on me. There's nothing else I can point to that's made a bigger contribution in my life. Yeah, there's a lot of things that happened before, no doubt. Many lessons learned, but this isn't that. This is what facilitated the transition, full stop. No disrespect to grandparents, parents, my dad, anyone who influenced me, none of that. Journaling is what helped me plot the course of my life and to persist on that course,
Wow.
straight up. So journaling is, that's the short answer of that.
Well, it's definitely very profound. I mean, what tangibly maybe then, what changes have you seen in day to day life, or looking back over the last 4 or 5 years? Right. I mean, well, you talked a bit about your weight loss, but what other kinds of changes have you seen in yourself?
I've seen everything change, and that's an interesting question. Because I can't necessarily point at one single thing that it made the change. Everything has come up. So my attitude, my demeanor, my clarity, my emotions are more stable. My vision is more stable. Like, everything has gotten better by a magnitude. So I can't say it's not like one peak. And this is how it's different. It's brought everything up, not just the one thing. So it's not like I just worked on a diet thing. It's not like I just worked on clarity because of my confusion, because of my quirkiness. Like everything got better.
Well,
Yeah.
plus the beard disappeared. So
Yeah.
for 3 years, this is a shock, but I guess for when we're recording here, I don't know, 3 weeks or something ago, and we,
Yeah.
got on a call, and I was like, who's this guy? Where's the beard? Because I've known Ross since 2022, I suppose, yeah, and
Yeah.
Ross is known as the guy with this massive bushy beard, right? And now it's gone. And now I have to say, I mean, it hasn't been long. I was just thinking right now, it's getting harder and harder to imagine you with a beard. Like, now I'm getting used to this. This is Ross now, and I like it. It's cool. But tell us about how that feels, getting rid of the beard.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for that. And it's been funny because I've been getting that reaction and I forget that I shaved it off because it was like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then I see somebody that I haven't seen for a while and they're shocked, like they're stunned, they're stymied, they stop dead in their tracks. So it's quite funny how that goes and everything. But yeah, I don't know. Whatever it is that makes people decide they've just had enough. It did age me a bunch, but
Mm.
I get that, but I'm not shallow, so that isn't why. I thought
Mhm.
about it for a while. I tried to trim it and style it differently, but I gave it a proper go, but ultimately I just got tired of it. And, now I've leveled up and it just seemed like the timing was right. Sometimes you just know when you're in an era, when a new era is about to begin. And this is
Yeah.
that time for me. I just,
Mm.
it was just time. So it was sort of maybe a symbolic gesture, but I changed from, the weight loss journey and stuff that I was on to now pivoting that to an activity thing to go forward with my initiatives. So it just seemed like the stars aligned, if you will, and it just felt right, and I stand by it. So thanks for the
Mm.
encouragement and noticing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how could you not
Yeah.
notice?
Yeah, it's quite a change. But it's fun.
Mm,
Yeah. All right. I'm curious to learn a little more about how you journal and
mm,
bring it back to what is different, but just how do you approach it? And is this a daily routine? Do you have prompts? Like, how does it actually
mhm.
manifest really on a regular basis?
Well, the biggest challenge for me was recovery and getting my health together and everything, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to persist with anything moving forward if I was unhealthy. So I decided to get my health together before doing any major launches or something, and it wasn't easy. So
Yeah.
took from the stream of consciousness, and I wanted to expand on that. So I just decided that I was going to do it, and I invented this system to look at what are the things that are causing that. And,
Mm.
I explored various different types of systems and I couldn't find what I needed. So, what I actually did was I started to do a review and check on my personal inventory. So, the early version was just my personal trinity. That was the first thing because I realized that I needed to know where I was at. So the personal trinity was checking in with, my mind, my body, my soul, and that was early January 2022. As I also looked a couple pages after the dog poop entry,
Okay.
and I got into that, and I looked at that, and since then I'm now down 160 pounds,
Well,
165 pounds. I just checked the other day. There's another 5 there. And, my doctors were amazed. They found out about, like, I found out about crossing the diabetic threshold. So this is new
oh
information
yeah.
to people who didn't know this. I found that about 14 months ago. The hypertension issue was getting too high for comfort. I didn't want to have the heart attack to learn about
Mm.
getting my health together. And, the doctor, once she found out I was diabetic, she started to promote the gastric bypass, wanted to cut parts out of me and hop me up on a Zempic and stuff like that. And I said no. I said I wanted to try uh, without it. And I was discouraged by the doctor.
Mm.
And I asked if it, and I was freaked out. Like I asked about the diabetes and the blood pressure. I'm like, can this stuff be backed out of? And is this label permanent? Like, what is it? And she said, no, it's not permanent, that some people can back out of it. And I was relieved instantly. And I said, well, if I can, I shall, like, hold my beer style, right? And, you know, that's where that began. So I leaned into creating the system. And yeah, so just to answer your actual question, the origin of where it came from was the doctor thing, was the main part of getting it together. So the diabetic thing was that, and then that's when I kicked in on really refining that, taking it beyond just checking in on my personal trinity and my habits and things. And I started developing a system that actually kind of was even more. But the core principle of it was starting with the North Star part.
What's the reception been like? I mean, when people see the changes, and people who've known you, of course, for a lot longer, and known you in person, and what kind of reactions have you had?
I didn't realize it because this was just sort of something that I was doing on my own. Like I said, I created this thing on my own to work on my own. And I just lost the weight slowly and gradually over the 13 months, and people just started noticing. And now it's extremely noticeable, especially with the beard gone, right? But people are like, "What happened? Like, where did you go? Like, literally, like, where did you go?" And I didn't realize that it would be as interesting as it is. Like, people are like, "Well, how did you do that?" And then as soon as I say, "Well, I just got tired of being unhealthy," or they're like, "How did you do that?" Like, they're ready to pull out a pen and start taking notes.
Yeah.
And I realized that the journaling system is actually interesting for more people than just myself. Like, I thought it was just a thing that I was doing for myself. So that's why I'm developing this further. And yeah, and you know, I know easily 20,000 people because of my dog, like, you know, Charlie Brown. Like, he's adorable as hell. He's got a big dopey face. His nickname is Love Bear for you know what I mean? Like, and most people that I know, like, they think I'm the thing that prevents the leash from dragging behind Sir Charlie. Like, no joke. And it turned out people that were really interested in how I lost 105 pounds in 14 months. So yeah, and I didn't think it would be that interesting. I thought it was just something I was doing. But you know, I was doing it more tortoise, less hairstyle, and I figured once I'd get healthier, I'd have more focus to focus on my initiatives. But now this is another thing that's presenting itself. So, you know, talk about an oversight, but yeah, go figure. I mean, I was just minding my own business, and you know, like a lot of guys do, we struggle with things in silence on our own. Like, we don't want to ask for help. We are quietly working through things, and you know, don't want to be a burden to people. And you know, that's actually something that I'm going to be writing about in my other stuff that I'll talk about later. But you know, you know, we just suffer in silence on our own. So it was interesting when people kept asking, like, you know, what happened and where it went. So that's when I decided to start with the journaling thing, because that's where it all started. So yeah.
I mean, tangibly too. I know you told me you go to the gym and exercise, diet, and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Like, it's practical.
Yeah. So that's part of it. Like, okay, so like like I'm going to keep going with it because why not? Like, I'm here now. It's not like I wasn't trying to do a destination, and the way that my system is set up, I'll tell you about in a sec. It's not about having a destination. It's about working through it, right? So I'm just going to keep working on it, you know, and get in better shape. Like, I want to see what I look like in the best shape of my life, and who cares if it happens now and didn't happen in my 20s? Why not? Why can't it be now? So I'm just going to do it. Like, hold my beer style. Like, actually, like, I couldn't be bothered drinking anymore. Like, I just couldn't be bothered with it. So yeah, that's funny, but not funny, because I think of it less like what I lost and more about what I gained. I gained satisfaction, I gained patience, I gained energy, I gained a clarity, I gained a better understanding of food and my body and how that works, and everything. And it was all through the process that I follow. So to get to your actual question, like, what's the process? I
Yeah.
created a system and I tied it to a weekly check-in. And there's 4 different things in this calibration tool that I use. So the first is the personal trinity. So that's the mind, the body, the soul, or should I say mental, physical, and emotional for the non-believers. Evaluate that for harmony and what is and what isn't in balance. And I look at that. How am I feeling? What am I thinking? And you know, is it congruent? And that's where the body revealed itself as the thing that needed attention. The mind, the soul were okay. So bringing the body up to speed so I can be in harmony. So the second thing I looked at is the future. Where am I going? Like my long-term, medium, and short-term. I read something from Stephen Covey, I think, about thinking about like writing your eulogy, and that was inspirational to me. So I thought of it sort of in that way, like my legacy, what do I want to be remembered as? And and then break things down from that all the way to present. So long term, so end of life or beyond, and legacy, medium and short term. And then I break it down from then to the present day. And does the things that I'm doing now line up with where I want to be, or is it not? Like, that's where the congruence is. So the third thing that I look at is mindfulness. So my routines, my rituals, my accountability and persistence. So what am I persisting at doing, or what habits are persisting that are either causing me to move forward or hold me back? And what am I actually doing? Like for real, like what am I actually doing? This is the toughest part of the whole thing because I can't BS myself. There's nobody else that's reading this. And this is the key. There's nobody else that's reading it. So you kind of have to be honest because you know that you're lying anyway. It doesn't make sense to write the lie on paper. That's the brilliant part about it. That's the tough part. And then the fourth part is I seek to find balance. And I've learned that if I balance work, rest, and play, and generally anything that you do covers one of two of those categories. There's not really anything that covers all three, right? So you can do some work stuff that's playful because it's creative, so that's an outlet. You can do some work stuff that's sort of lazy and restful, however that is. Like if you're yoga, that's not lazy, but there's sort of rest in there too, right? So, you can do that. But ultimately, when things go out of whack, it's because it's out of whack in one of those areas that creates that dissonance for us. So, oh, you're working too hard. Well, that means you're not enjoying your life, right? So I found that these were the three key points, and I wanted to keep the system simple enough that it wasn't overwhelming because I have enough things that are overwhelming. And, this is where I've discovered that, if you maintain your work, your rest, and your play, and that includes your family time, all that, it all fits into those categories. The activities that you do with the family and your work, all of that, if you maintain that, then that results in a better personal trinity. So I needed work on my body and to rest better and putting the effort into that. That's why that came about. So these four things on a repeating basis is important to write down. But what's more important is that they keep coming up every 4 weeks. So you're kind of conditioning your brain to deepen the groove that thinks about that kind of thing. So when you're out, so what I found, the real brilliance isn't what I'm writing on the paper. Like I don't even read it again, but the action of thinking about the future and the long term. What am I doing now? And that I see that when I'm at the grocery store, and I'm like, no, this isn't what that guy would do.
Right.
And
you frame it now.
Yeah. So the framing and all of that, and it comes from myself. So that's where that comes from. So in the system, it brings it all together: the past, the present, and the future in balance. Your actions and what they yield in plain view. And I wish I had more time for this, but these are the core concepts of that. I haven't even got into the parts about the diet workbook that I made for, my actual dieting and stuff, but that's a different system. But the core principle is the North Star, and this is that core principle. And that's why I wanted to start with that today to talk about. And yeah.
Why do you call it North Star journaling?
I call it North Star journaling because it's in many ways it's similar to cartography. And I was always, as a kid, fascinated by the North Star in particular because it was always the same and that was constant. And that was interesting to me. It wasn't part of a constellation or anything. It was just a reference point. I always thought that was kind of cool about it. And I grew up in the middle of nowhere. So the moon was a big deal to me. When the moon was bright and it was full, it lit up everything. But when it was new, I could see all the stars. I could look out into everything. So that really stuck with me as a kid. So it starts as the constant, as the reference point. So when you're doing a map, you look at the North Star and you triangulate where you are, your position in relation to the North Star. So the true north and that, or the Southern Cross if you're down south. while all the chaos and everything swirls around it. And you need to triangulate your position so that you know where you want to go and how you get yourself from point A to point B. It just seemed like the right kind of thing. And that's why I call it North Star journaling, because you calibrate that thing that's inside of you, that little voice there, that feeling, the urge, that thing. And you calibrate that with the North Star where you want to be. And that's how you make that happen. And since it's constant, it gives you that stable reference point. And I just couldn't think of a better name for it.
Yeah, it's a great name. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. I've got one last question about how this plays out. So you've got these four areas: the personal trinity, the time framing, mindfulness, and the balance. Do you ask yourself questions every day when you go to journal? Do you go through those four things every day and kind of review and assess and so on? Or is it more, spread out once a week? Or how do you actually use that system on a daily basis or,
Yeah.
longer time frame?
In the beginning, I didn't tie it to a schedule. In the beginning, I wrote it out just all of at once. Like I kind of combined them. I did the work, the personal trinity and the habits all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And then the future thing and the work, rest, and play balance, I did that all at once. But that felt like it was a bit much.
Yeah.
Because there were days where I'm like, oh man, like I got to sit here and write out 2 pages worth. And then I got better because it was doing its job. So then I realized that I didn't need to do it as frequently. So then I'm like, okay, well, maybe once a week would be good.
Okay.
And I've never liked the calendar system that we have because when I was a kid, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, like nowhere. Like there was no light, nothing. Like there was nowhere. Like there isn't even running water where I'm from. Like, and the sky and this darkness, like I didn't understand the calendar system that we had because as a kid, you don't have to operate off of anything. I'm like, well, why do we do this when there's a moon out there? Like I didn't understand. I was a kid. So I thought, I'm like, well, why don't I tie this to that? I'm like, use the full moon as a symbolic time for reflection because that you can see more. So I remembered that when I was a kid and I'm like, yeah, so I could see more and that's revealing. I thought, okay. And then, well, why don't I put the future projections into the long term and do that on the new moon when there's no light distraction? And I thought, okay, so that's going to give me exactly 2 weeks. So that changes my frame from where I'm at now. And that gives me a good segue time. And then I realized the other ones could go in between. So I could still change those up because they both kind of fit. But the way I do it is I review the personal, the habits and things after the personal trinity. Okay, well then why am I like that? So I do that on the quarter moon and the 3/4 moon.
I see.
So that gives me a precise system of 28 reviews or 13 reviews a year, and each one of them on a weekly basis every 7 days, which doesn't line up with the calendar, but it just feels more natural. So that's why I go off of that system. And I'm going to talk more about that. I'm going to plan to kind of do a launch. I'm doing a thing for Puttyverse, the site that we know each other from, on the solstice, and I'm aspiring to launch that in July for my new Substack content that I'm putting out. And I'm going to invite people to a Zoom meeting and just kind of see where it goes. Like I can see myself maybe selling stationery, but I just want to get people to find their true purpose in life and to fulfill their heart's desires. Like that's what I would like to see. And if my other things are more successful and it overshadows this, then so be it. But this is the main thing that I want to do, and I love it. And turns out like there's a lot of people that are into journaling.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
I had no idea, but like there's a lot. Like, yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. I don't know where it's going. I just know where I want to be. Like I write in the journal. Do I have any specific prompts? I used to, but I found that it's better to just write things out because then I process it. If I have too many prompts, that gives me a structure. I don't want the structure. I want a guide. And to me, it's different. A guide is different than a structure.
It's more flexible.
Yeah, and I wanted this to be simple. I don't want it to be something that every week I'm like, oh, now I got to do this again.
Then it comes drag,
Yeah, so removing friction and all that is kind of where that is. And that's made me see from working out from the long term all the way down to the short term what my next steps are. And I feel the next best step is not to start with my philosophy brand, which I'll talk about later or in another episode or like on my own in my Substack. Like I got a cool name for that. I'm trying not to say these things because they're so distracting. I'll nerd out and I'll talk about this for a half an hour and I won't even let you say anything to interrupt
And
me.
this would turn into a 3-hour episode.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I promised that I'd say that, so
Well,
I'm holding back.
So
but, yeah.
This is the thing, right? Because this leads to where we're at now. I mean, first off, this has been great, getting your story and especially the journaling, which has been such a priority and clearly has changed your life. It's very, very inspiring. So now we're at the point of the show where we really get into how people can get in touch with you and interact with you and follow up on a lot of these ideas. So in your case, of course, it's the journaling primarily. We mentioned Substack, so we'll talk about your plans for that. And that's kind of the place where I know you're going to explore some more of these ideas and projects and, things you can help people, offer people, and so on. But tell us about your plans with Substack.
Dude, okay. So first off, thanks for asking that question. And when you asked me that 2 weeks ago, I panicked. I was like, oh no, like, what do I do?
That's
like,
a good
how do
point.
I?
Yeah,
because
let
I
me
panicked
just quickly because now with this new multipod, right? When I'm inviting people on the show, I have a very specific request that you have to come with and share with the listeners how you want to interact with them, what kind of help you're looking for, the things you want to talk about. Maybe you have a business, and check out my offers and stuff like that. But something that you are looking to interact with people. So it's not just telling your story and so on and sharing your interests. And that's fun, that's interesting, and then, the episode ends and we all carry on. There's a call to action here, not just for the listener, but also for the guest, to say, I want to interact with people about this or that topic. So that was the challenge to you.
Yeah, so that was. And I panicked a bit because I'm like, oh no, now I got to pick which one. Now I got to run into those skipping ropes, right? I'm like, oh no.
That's part of the challenge.
But then I was like, wait a second, no. I'm like, I got an idea from a friend of mine who said he was going to do a personal blog, but he just works a normal job, right? So I'm like, well, what are you going to blog about? And he's like, oh, just his life and that. And I thought, well, why don't I do that? And then I'm like, wait, why don't I do that instead of like finding a funding or kind of an opportunity to make it work, like this awkward sort of stuff with that, looking for funding, doing a GoFundMe or something. Like, it got confusing. So I decided to just start with the Substack, get some subscribers on that, which I can transition into my philosophy content that I'm going to do later. And that's when I decided I flipped the switch to do Substack. I'm like, I got to start somewhere. I'll start there. It's a growing platform. It's well established. People are latching onto it fairly quickly. And I can do an audio first thing. So I am a better talker than a writer, although I'm good with writing, but I'm very natural at speaking. And I wanted to do an audio first and it'll be transcribed. So I'm going to do that and post that on Substack. So give you the link for that. But I also changed my handle on all of my accounts to Ross YVR 604. So you can find me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, other ones. Like, I'm just like, I also went around kind of doing that because ain't nobody out there arguing or fighting over Ross YVR 604. Like, ain't no one fighting over that.
We should explain what that is. So you're Vancouver representing here.
Yeah. So I did that, and because that's our airport
YVR
code.
is the airport code, right? That
Exactly. Yeah.
YVR, this and that. And 604 is at least one of the telephone area codes.
One of the 3 area codes that's here, and it's the old school one. It's the oldest one. So there's a thing about 604 area code because, like, there's a thing about area codes. So I just went with that because I wanted to place myself here because I will eventually end up traveling and doing things all over the place and things and doing that. But Vancouver is my home now. I was born and raised in Manitoba, but this is now my home. So this is where my photos are going to be. This is where most of my content is. I'm a library nerd. Our library is beautiful. And there's just a lot that I'll be doing there. And I just decided to just tie myself to it. My last name is, awkward to pronounce. And I really like my first name. I was named after a good friend of my father, Ross, and my grandmother low key because her name was Rose.
Okay.
And Ross is the masculine version of Rose. I felt like, so I went with that, and I like it. Like, everyone knows Ross, but it's not commonly known. Everyone knows 13 Jasons, right? Like,
Yeah.
not no shade on Jason, but yeah, the Jasons out there. But like, I just like my name, so I was fortunate with that. So I'm just gonna go with Ross YVR 604, and that's on everything, and the Substack will be in the link. So
Yeah,
thanks
we'll put
for
down the
like
link.
actually
Yeah.
like nudging me to
Mm,
find a solution to that, because I hadn't really thought about that. So the timing and everything
okay.
was great. So when you mentioned this and that, I jumped on it because I thought, yeah, I got an excuse to talk to my friend Ted and have a recording of it and to nerd
Yeah.
out and go on and stuff. And I know that you're give me the allowance to just ramble on like I have been, and I appreciate your patience. So thanks for that.
Well, I'm privileged to have this platform, and it's a remarkable thing with the multipod because I feel like I'm starting something from scratch here. It's a brand new show. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, it
But
does.
then I got to remember, like, geez, we started this podcast at the beginning of January of 2018. So, it's 7+ years that we've been doing it. And aside from the past few months, it's been pretty consistent over those years. We have well over 100 episodes, all kinds of people to talk to. And, so there's this funny, kind of interesting background and foundation, which, still exists and it's part of the lineage of this show. It's just taking on a new era now, a new, progression, I guess, to be something a little different, but mostly more intentional. I really just want to be more intentional about it. So, and I love that, that when you say that I help you nudge, to take more action or figure things out. That's great too. I hadn't really thought about that, but I'm starting to realize that by bringing people on the show to figure out ways to connect with people that can help them, nudge to, figure things out and getting stuff out there and completing projects or whatever it is, because now you have a purpose to do it. And the people listening, and here's a perfect example here today, and everyone listening and watching on, because now we're doing this video. The multipod's never been video before, but we're going to put stuff on YouTube as well. So whether you're listening or watching, you heard Ross's story, and if the journaling really speaks to you, if of course you want to know more about the philosophy, weight loss for sure, and all kinds of other projects and things you have coming up, those are the cues to reach out to Ross. All the links and everything will be in the show notes, and tell him what really spoke to you, right, and what piqued your interest, and we'll see who you meet. I'm really curious to find out. Yeah, so thanks very much, Ross, for being here. This has been a wonderful first episode relaunch of the Multipod, and to all of our wonderful loyal listeners, welcome back, and stay tuned for more. I've got lots more recordings coming up. We do have a new website, I should point that out. It's themultipod.com. The URL was available, so I bought it. So themultipod.com goes to the website where people can fill out an application form if you want to come on the show, of course, just like Ross has done, and share your story, share what you're up to. So there's that, and there'll be lots more episodes. But thanks for joining us here today, Ross. It's been lots of fun.
You're very welcome, Ted. Thanks again. To be continued, and it was good talking to you, my friend. Ciao for now.
Yeah.
So I want to circle back to that point there that just came up. I hadn't thought of this before, but really by having the multipod with this new intentionality, there's very much an intention to this show that we want people, listeners, to connect with guests. And as you've heard, when people come on the show, my request is that you have something that you're looking for, a way of connection. It could be a hobby, it could be an interest, a passion, it could be related to your business, but there's that intentional thing that says, you don't want to just say hello to people and nice to meet you, but you're there for a purpose, that the listeners have something that they can offer you and vice versa. So the thought that's just come to mind, and Ross and I were just talking about it there, is that if that helps to inspire people to come on the show, to kind of give a bit of a kick of action to do the thing, to start the thing, I would love to be a part of that journey for you. So if that does help you with a bit of inspiration, consider that, and maybe coming on the multipod, talking it out, sharing, what some of the struggles are and some of the great ideas you have around a particular idea, a project. helps to get it out in the open. It helps to make it more real. I can really vouch for that. The more you talk about something and you get that idea out there, just kind of brainstorming and sharing with other people, it really helps it start to take form and you can see where you want to go with it. So multipotentialites, we're well versed in thinking of different ideas and projects, and I'm here to help you make those things come to life and come real. So think about that as you think about coming on the show. It's very much open to anybody, and if this theme really speaks to you, then please get in touch. Again, themultipod.com is our new website, and you can find all the contact info there. And I'll circle back again to Ross here. To reach out to Ross, he's made it very simple and easy for all of us. It's Ross YVR604. And you can find him on, sounds like most, if not all of the big platforms, especially Substack. Substack is where he's kind of circling around. I've noticed some of his new newsletters coming out just in the last little while. And perhaps by the time you're listening or watching this, of course, there'll be lots more. Not just written, he's been doing some audio stuff too there. So Ross, YVR604, send him that email, send him that message, and get in touch. And another thing, that we're going to explore this some more too, is getting some updates from our guests and our listeners over time. I mean, we'll give it a few weeks, a few months or so, however it works out. But hopefully we'll get some of those stories of how people have connected and gotten to know each other thanks to finding out about each other through this show. So that sets up for our next episode, which is coming up right after this. If you're watching or listening as these episodes are being released, they're being released back to back, and then we'll settle into that regular 2-episode-a-month schedule, at least for the next little while. So following up with this is my conversation with Charlotte Petit-Noble, who hails from France originally. She now lives in Los Angeles area in California with their husband. They're both from France, but they've been living in California for a couple decades or so at least. You'll hear about her story of going from Europe over to the United States and how things have settled in there. She barely spoke a word of English when she started, but of course now she's quite fluent, and we have a fun conversation. It revolves largely around entrepreneurship, but true multi-potentialite form, trying different things, losing interest, being tempted by something else. And she's at the point in her life now of, trying to find that balance, of really trusting her gut and her instinct and kind of letting things flow. And her recent project for a couple years or so now is teaching mothers or helping mothers with breastfeeding, because Charlotte has 2 young kids and she's been experiencing that too. So she has lots to share. It's something she's very excited about. It meant a lot to her to really explore that theme and how she can help other women with that. So as much as that's the focus of the business, it's still a question, well, who knows where it'll go and where it will evolve and the kinds of offers that she may have over time, but it'll be exciting to see where that goes, and we'll learn all about it in the very next episode. So you can hit it up back to back here if you like, or circle back in the future and check it out. But that's with Charlotte Petit-Noble, who's my next guest. And thanks again to Ross. Thanks again to everybody listening and watching. This is exciting. We're underway. It's great to be back here on the Multipod, and we'll talk to you some more soon. Thanks to my guests today for sharing their story and what they're up to. You can find all the links and resources that we talked about in the description for this episode. Really don't hesitate to reach out and make that contact. Now you know that they exist, they need to know that you're out there too. A simple email or message can suffice. Or send a more substantial message if there's something that really jumped out for you. The Multipod has a new website, themultipod.com. Here you'll find the archives of the podcast in its previous form, all 111 episodes, a number of bonus episodes, and our Everything Conference mini-series, as well as the new episodes and the resources therein as they are released. Over time, we'll build it out for the best searchability and referencing possible, so you can easily find who you're looking for. But a nice spreadsheet will suffice for now. The website also has a new guest application form. Let us know what topic or topics you would like to connect with people about, and we will set up a recording. As a guest, this is your primary task. Come prepared. Like all podcasts, the Multipod will thrive thanks to sharing, reviews, subscribing, and commenting if you're on YouTube, and just generally getting the word out to multipotentialites that this resource exists. So help us spread our reach and create more opportunities and exposure for everyone. You can reach me at themultipodcast@gmail.com. That's themultipodcast@gmail.com. Or again, the website is simply themultipod.com. New episodes will be out on the 1st and 15th of every month. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today, and we'll see you again soon.